When a theory is being put out by the government as a way to help people forward after a pandemic, it might be one of the biggest conspiracies yet. Follow me down the rabbit hole about the Great Reset. Hi, friends. Welcome back to the rabbit hole. I am your host, Dani, and today we are talking about the Great Reset. So, this isn't going to be an ongoing conspiracy. Like, this is something that's happening right now, right here. Like, things are going to continue to happen well past the time that I'm recording this for you. So, if in the future you're like, hey, you shouldn't cover that in her podcast, well, guess what? It probably hasn't happened yet. Or, I don't know, maybe it's really deep undercover and I just didn't find it. Both things are likely. Anyway, let's kind of get into this Great Reset. And the reason I chose to do this episode this week is because we did the food shortages last week, and I believe with my conspiratorial heart that they might be connected. Tell me what you like after you hear this, guys. Like, tell me what you think. You might think they're connected too. So let's get into it. So the World Economic Forum is basically like this. It's a group. I said at the beginning, the government. It's not necessarily part of the government. It's like a nonprofit organization funded by billionaires and countries. Some countries help fund it too. The World Economic Forum put out in the midst of COVID in June of 2020, like during, the 2-week lockdown that actually took 2 years. They had this article explaining that the world needs like a great reset urgently. They're like, something's got to change because everything's going to crap, which, I mean, you have to think of the time period, and we all lived through it 2 years ago. And yeah, everyone was kind of scrambling. They're like, crap, we have this pandemic. What do we do? Like, do people keep going to work? What, like, people are dying. Do we need a vaccine? Blah, blah, blah. Right? So people are panicking. The great toilet paper shortage of 2020 is happening. And the World Economic Forum was like, oh, shoot. We definitely need something to help the world, right? So they stated that personal debt, unemployment, and government debt is out of control and will lead to more issues in the climate and social crises. Okay. I thought that the climate had a bit of relief during the time because basically there were no cars on the road. But, according to the World Economic Forum, the governments actually used COVID-19 to lessen the environmental protections, which, I don't fully understand how one has to do with the other at all. But basically, I recall, and I didn't find it, but I recall hearing that, honestly, the climate is getting better because, less cars on the road, less carbon monoxide into the air, and a lot of the lockdowns actually helped the environment. But according to the World Economic Forum, it did not. Also, they mentioned that inequality is rising because American billionaires were getting more rich during COVID while many lost their jobs, which, also true because Amazon boomed during COVID, but also, he created the system that's like an online purchasing system. So I don't know, maybe he just had a really good outlook on life. I don't know. Yes, that happened. A lot of people lost their jobs. I'm not trying to minimize what happened. I mean, I really sympathize with you if you lost your job. However, this is true. The Great Reset, according to the World Economic Forum, needs 3 main components. The first, this is a quote right out of their article, linked in my show notes. The first would steer the market toward fairer outcomes. To this end, governments would improve coordination, for example, in tax, regulatory, and fiscal policy, upgrade trade arrangements, and create the conditions for a, quote, stakeholder economy, unquote. At a time of diminishing tax bases and soaring public debt, governments have a powerful incentive to pursue such action, unquote. They want more equality equitable outcomes for all people to include raising taxes on the wealthy and new rules on intellectual property, trade, and competition. If they're trying to make everything more equitable, I don't know. It just sounds a bit socialist to me. I'm just like the way they worded it sounds very socialist to me, which, okay. Although we should, take a note from other socialist countries as well as past socialist countries. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying let's look around before we just go full socialist. Thank you, World Economic Forum. We appreciate your input on this topic, but let's, really do our research before we just jump into that. Anyway, according to Forbes, stakeholder economics doesn't really work and is more of like a PR front than something that is sustainable. The big businesses that have tried it have ended up coming off as like wishy-washy because they're trying to please every single one of the stakeholders individually instead of moving forward as a company to like one clear goal in mind. So having a stakeholder economic government basically is what they're suggesting probably won't work because you cannot satisfy every single individual's families in the country. You can't satisfy everyone's needs. It's impossible. So it's a really good idea, but basically according to the Forbes magazine that I found on stakeholder economics, it's more of a PR scheme or stunt because they want more stakeholders, obviously in their company. So they say they're going to do this stakeholder economics. Makes sense. I don't know if it makes sense for an entire government, especially because Forbes is saying like it doesn't really work even for businesses. So anyway, the second component is using the recovery funds that each country is proposing, as well as like private businesses, because private businesses also propose some recovery funds from this COVID pandemic, to create a new, equal, and sustainable system. They said we shouldn't use the money to patch holes in the old system. We need to carry on to a new system, basically. Quote, this means, for example, building green urban infrastructures and creating incentives for industries to improve their track record on environmental, social, and governance metrics, unquote. As you'll see with all three components, they are driving home, and actually the whole basis of the Great Reset is they're driving home the sustainability and this equality. Sustainability, equality, all the way. They want to make sure our planet will live on forever, that people will be able to continue to live on the planet at the rate that we're going, and that all people will be equal, which honestly never happens. Nothing, in no situation ever is everybody equal. It's just not gonna happen. Like, I don't know. I'm not trying to get it, even in like a marriage, you got sometimes the wife wears the pants and sometimes the husband wears the pants and sometimes it's always the wife or sometimes it's always, you know what I'm saying? Like, in no situation is everything fair and equal. So anyway, on to the final component. The final component of this reset would be to use the fourth industrial revolution to move forward. So during this time of the COVID pandemic, everyone had basically like dropped everything else to figure out COVID. So for example, like companies, universities, medical facilities were all working on ways to like diagnose, treat, test, and come up with like a vaccine for this new illness, which makes sense because I'm not going to get into the COVID conspiracy. I'm going to go with what mainstream media put out for this episode. We might get into COVID in another episode. I'm not sure if I'm fully ready for that yet, but if people were dropping in the numbers that was put out by mainstream media, we need to drop everything and test, cure, vaccinate, do whatever we need for COVID. So that all makes sense. They came up with testing facilities, which we hadn't had for any other illness before, ways to track the infection, and so on. So the World Health Forum, I was going to say the World Health Organization. It's actually the World Economic Forum is suggesting that we use this newfound like tele way of life to continue forward. So we've already done all these great things. Let's keep doing great things in that direction. And honestly, and this was, again, this article was from June 2020. So it was like in the middle of it. But here it is, August of 2022. And we're seeing how the tele life that became because of COVID is continuing forward. So I think that this actually makes a lot of sense. Everything else, I'm a little, like curious on what they actually mean. But this makes sense. Like, we do want to continue the tele way of life ish. Like, working from home makes sense for some people. Some people it doesn't make sense. Telehealth, I think, is the dumbest thing that's ever happened to our healthcare system, because how can you diagnose me with something if you haven't even like seen me in person, or like, I don't know, like put your hands on me to feel if my, like, I don't know, like what they do with the doctor.
Did you know that over 40% of Americans have a hard time swallowing pills? So when it's time to take your vitamins, large capsules and pills are out of the question. We know that gummy vitamins exist, but they're full of sugar, they get stuck in your teeth, and they only contain a fraction of the nutrients you need. Luckily, Easy Melts has discovered the ultimate vitamin sweet spot. Vitamins that melt in your mouth, taste like a treat, and are packed with nutrients ready for absorption, all without an ounce of sugar. For a limited time, Easy Melts is giving listeners a free 3-month supply of vitamin D3 with their first purchase. To claim your free D3 vitamins, visit try.easymelts.com/spring24. That's try.melts.com/spring24. Say goodbye to the old way of taking your vitamins and say hello to the easy way. Menopausal and perimenopausal women, listen up. It's time to take control of your health and comfort, and Winona is here to help. Winona is a telemedicine company for menopause care who believes that your symptoms are real, important, and deserve to be taken seriously. And for many women, this starts with hormone replacement therapy. Winona's HRT is made with plant-based, bioidentical hormones rather than synthetic ones, so it better aligns with your body to offer relief from hot flashes, weight gain, and other uncomfortable symptoms. 80% of women who use Winona find relief within just 90 days. So, what are you waiting for? Get started today. Visit buywinona.com today to start your free visit. With free shipping and the ability to pause or cancel at any time, your path to wellness has zero obligations. Use code SPRING24 at buywinona.com for 25% off your first treatment plan. That's BYWINONA.com for 25% off. Winona. Menopause care made easy.
Anyway, so what are they really trying to do? So many say the global elites are behind the theory because it was presented originally from the World Economic Forum. Well, did you know the World Economic Forum is a project that is privately funded from countries and individuals, some being like Japan, Germany, Norway, as well as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Wellcome Trust. They raised $460 million just to get this organization started. And it's a nonprofit organization, not run by any government, like I said at the beginning. However, it is run for governments and funded by multiple governments. Apparently, I guess this is in the very beginning, America, the United States, did not originally fund the World Economic Forum, although we do take their advice often. So in other episodes, I'm pretty sure last week I mentioned the World Economic Forum. Like, they're mentioned a lot. So I'm just saying, like, people are taking what they say seriously. And I mean, they look like a very government-y organization, honestly. So they're trying to basically restructure our society, which is exactly what they said in the article. However, they didn't go into great detail about exactly like what they're gonna do. Which is, again, a very governmental thing to do. We'll just like put it out there like, look, this is what we propose. We just need these couple things from you guys and it's all gonna be good. Well, let's get into it. They want us basically in like a rental state, meaning instead of owning anything, you will rent it from either like a big corporation or the government to include your house, everything in your house, like pots and pans, computers, phones, your car. They've introduced like a car share, which basically like they have started this in parts of the world. I'm not sure exactly how well it's going, but I know in some parts of the world this is really happening already. You won't own your car. Your car actually won't even be yours. You won't have a car for you. There will be cars on the street. And maybe this happens in New York. I don't know, New York City, because like maybe sometimes you need a car, but most of the time people just use a taxi. Excuse me, I was situating. If you need a car, you'll go on an app, basically. Like the electric scooters or the bikes that you see in big cities. We have them all over Denver. You go on an app, you click, hey, I'm going to use this car. You can use it for as long as you want. You just pay for like your time or your mileage or something. I don't know how you'd pay for it, but they'll come up with some way for you to pay for it. You use it, and then you just park it back on the street when you're done. Make sure you take all your stuff out of it, because otherwise somebody will take your stuff, and lock it up. And then you click in your app, you're done. I imagine that this would be exactly like the electric scooters. And honestly, I really enjoy riding the electric scooters. But I imagine that this car share thing would be exactly like the electric scooters and the bikes that you see all over cities. Like, you just use this app, click, hey, I'm using it for now. Wherever you park it, that's where you parked it. And there it is, So if nobody has parked in your neighborhood for a while, you're going to walk until you find a car that you need. Which actually doesn't sound great, honestly. They also won't want people living so far away from cities because basically like hazards to the environment. Again, sustainability, right? So they're going to go for like a much more environmentally sound mixed use housing. So apartments on top of shops, your grocery stores, your anything that you need like on a daily basis, your pharmacy, your grocery store, clothing stores, they already have these. I can think of at least one shopping mall here in Colorado, not like physically here. I'm at my house. But in Colorado that actually is already doing this, where they have like the whole mall, right? It's like an outdoor mall, and they have apartments on top. It's a very popular way, but this means that you can literally walk down, get what you need, and then walk back up to your apartment. On top of this, you will no longer go to an office, which is happening already. I don't know. You probably work from home. If you're listening to this, you probably work from home. I don't work from home, but you probably do. If you work from home, the odds are your company, I don't know. I guess I'm just making a generalization. Go with me here. Your company doesn't really want to pay for office space after realizing that they don't have to. Some companies, they do have to because privacy reasons or whatever, but a lot of companies don't. So you're going to work from home, or you're going to work in a work share, co-op type office space where you can rent an office space, or you can just go in and sit down and do your work. And there's other people also doing work, potentially not in your same line of work. Everyone could be doing different work from all over the place in the same co-op. And they have those already. I see them in the city. Anytime I go into Denver, I see this big co-op work share site. You can go in, other people are in there working, and you can be in there working. That way you're not so lonely, But they don't want to rent a space for you to work. On that note, they also don't want to pay you all the things they're paying you. So they don't want to pay you time off. They don't want to pay you time off. Yeah, you get PTO, right? Paid time off. They don't want to pay you benefits. They don't want to pay into your 401k. They don't want to help with your medical. They don't want to help with... They don't care about you. So you will no longer be an employee. Now you'll just be a contractor, which kind of sucks. The good thing is you can take as much time off as you want to, however you don't get paid for it. So pros and cons, you no longer have to ask for time off in some cases, but you also don't have retirement unless you're doing it for yourself. And some people are very financially sound, and they do have their own retirement funds outside of work. Good for you. But if that's what you're kind of hoping for, you're in for a rude awakening. They are disguising this. If you look around, you're already seeing this happening, right? Look around and you're I can see, Dani's got some good points. And I do. I really do. Have you heard of Build Back Better? I bet you have, because President Biden has said Build Back Better more times in the last several years than I think anybody has said any 3 words together ever before. Also, Prime Minister Trudeau used it. It's been used in many countries. And it's basically like the slogan to help with COVID relief, COVID, like this pandemic. However, the campaign is over. COVID is basically, now it's just an epidemic, not a pandemic anymore, right? So like it's not as extreme. I mean, I just had COVID a couple weeks ago and I was not that sick. So I mean, I got sick, but like not that sick, you know? Anyway, not the point. The point is COVID's basically over. Like the height of COVID and all the crazy stuff that came with it is basically over. The campaign is over. Why do we still see Build Back Better everywhere? Like, we're just talking about like building back better, but what are we building back better? Like, what's happening here? So many people, anywhere you look and you like research this Great Reset, they just kind of like talk about the Build Back Better thing and how it's still everywhere. And we think as a community, that this something about this has to do with the Great Reset. Not all the pieces of that puzzle have been put together. Like I said, this is an ongoing thing that's happening now. You can call it a conspiracy, or maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just a skeptic. Anyway, I read this article. It's from ammo.com. Although they had really good information, I don't know if they sell ammo on this site at all. So I don't know. If you really want ammo, do your own research, because I'm not sure. This is just a really good article about the Great Reset. I'm going to give you several bullet points. Some of them I'm going to like add in my own, thoughts on. However, I want to go over these because these are really good. I took this straight from their website. You can go on their website and check it out. It's in my show notes. But we're just going to kind of like start. So this is a glimpse at how the Great Reset will look. Basically, like a sharing economy. Everything is rented and nothing is owned. Digital media. It will be easier to ban and suppress books and videos than run contrary to prevailing narratives, which we are seeing all over the place. They're banning people from all different types. I mean, Elon Musk just bought Twitter and was like, yeah, like free speech is a thing and we should honor it. It's in our First Amendment. Social media restrictions. The de facto public square will be restricted to those who tout the latest version of elite narratives. A de facto social credit system, which we're going to get a little bit more into this in a little while, guys. But anyway, a de facto social credit system. Those who deviate from the narrative will be financially blacklisted, including loss of their dubious benefits, which will increasingly become necessary for ordinary life and even survival. Centralization of housing and land. Fewer and fewer Americans will own property they live on. For reference, by the way, I looked this up because I was curious, John Malone is the largest landowner in the U.S., owning 2.2 million acres of land. His land is in Maine, New Mexico, Colorado, and Wyoming, and is largely made up of cattle ranches. I'm assuming maybe he owns a little bit in Maine and mostly in New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, because those three are like really close together and Maine's like far, far away. I don't know. I didn't look that up. This is just me speculating. Anyway, do you know who John Malone is? Don't worry. I looked that up too because I was so curious. Like, maybe he's just a cattle rancher and he just got really good at this. No, he was the CEO for Telecommunications Incorporated for like 25 years or something like that, which is succeeded by AT&T broadband. So here is my question, and I know that you guys have the same kind of thought process as me, which is kind of why I'm going here. What is a CEO of a telecommunications company, it's literally Telecommunications Incorporated, doing buying all these ranches and all this land? I mean, maybe he always wanted to be a cattle farmer and he was like, this is my way of like being a cattle farmer. But also, when you make that much money, you don't actually go out and do anything on those ranches. You can tie it back to the food shortages potentially if you have quite a skeptic mind, the way I potentially do. Obviously I do. I would not run a conspiracy theory podcast if my brain didn't work like this, right? Anyway, back to these bullet points. Racial equality. Some races will be more equal than others, with preferred groups becoming the recipients of generous benefit programs funded by the less preferred groups, who increasingly become tax slaves. Climate change. Protection of the environment will be used as an excuse to reduce the standard of living for the middle class, increase restrictions on freedom of movement, and even access to food. We're going back to this whole food shortage thing. It keeps coming back up. Ground level goons will operate with impunity to attack enemies of the system in coordinated outbreaks of violence and intimidation. Concentrated wealth. Wealth will be concentrated in the hands of the regime and its allies, which will be used as economic leverage to control political discourse and personal freedom. There's so many. Each of these bullet points, there's so much to unpack in each of them. You do it for yourself, because I'm going to get myself in trouble if I do it for you. Anyway, let's talk about FedNow. Have you heard of FedNow? Because I had not heard of FedNow until I started doing this research. So let's talk about that. Because FedNow is basically like this instant payment service, which will be launched next year. This is a quote right off their website, because I was very curious. What are you? Why? Who wants you? Why do we care? The FedNow service is a new instant payment service that the Federal Reserve banks are developing to enable financial institutions of every size and in every community across the U.S. to provide safe and efficient instant payment services in real time, around the clock, every day of the year. That's just like a little snippet. You can get like more information if you go to their website. And I actually linked it in my show notes. The Federal Reserve. Oh, man. That is a podcast and a half by itself. So basically what happened is they gave us these stimulus checks, right? And they deposited this money right into our accounts. They're like, here you go. I know you guys need it, and this is for you, and you're welcome. This may or may not have put us into this recession/depression, whatever. So they gave us, these little stimmy checks. Thank you, government. That was so nice. Well, then the government was like, oh, poopy. You know what happens? It took too long to hit. Us giving you free money, just took a really long time. Okay. So, they created this whole new system with the help of the Federal Reserve, because they need to have their sticky little fingers in everything. And, that's what FedNow is, and you will be required to use it in the future. The question I have is, how many times does the government actually plan on sending us money? Should I download this app so I just get free money from the government all the time? I should just, you know what? I'll just stop paying my taxes, and then we won't have to do this back and forth exchange. I'll just keep my money. You don't have to give it back to me. It's a win-win for everybody, right? Also, I don't know. Anyway, the Senate is urging them to move quickly to implement the system as fast as possible. As fast as possible. There is a video, and again, in the show notes, guys, everything you need to see. They're spinning this to be something that would be very valuable to the middle and lower class citizens. Basically, if you're living paycheck to paycheck and you deposit a check into your account, sometimes it takes a little while to clear. I know, because we went from one financial institution to a new one, and the new one takes a week and a half, 2 weeks sometimes to deposit a check, a paper check that I, mobile deposit, where the old one took 3 days. That was really nice. Anyway, Senator Holland from Maryland is recorded saying that the system will help Americans get their money faster, so people living paycheck to paycheck won't have to deal with the overdraft fees that occur when waiting for the check to clear the bank. This sounds really noble. This sounds really good. Except, I just don't trust it. This is why I run this podcast, because I am a skeptic, and I just don't know if I want the Federal Reserve / government having access to my bank accounts. Because then, what if they don't like what I'm spending my money on? What if they start monitoring? I mean, they're probably already monitoring what I'm spending my money on, but As an example, what if I buy a gun and then I buy a lot of ammo for that gun? What if they don't like that? What if I start buying a bunch of food and they're like, well, according to our records, according to your taxes, you only have this many people in your house and you're buying enough food for this many people. Why are you hoarding food? I just see like this spiral of things that could potentially happen. And I'm like, I really don't want to give you access to all my things. So that's fun. And I'm just this one last thing, guys, and then we're done. One last thing. New York's being real sketchy. New York City. Let me be more specific. New York City's being super sketchy. Not that it's like not a sketchy city. I don't know. I guess I've never been there, but I've seen it in movies. Anyway, they are just like putting out some stuff right now that's just causing a lot of people to scratch their head and go, that's odd. So New York recently, this is the furthest in the past thing, but I want you to know that all of these things have been put out in the last month. So since this was put out July 13th, New York put out a public service announcement in case of like what to do in case of a nuclear attack. Just in case, don't worry, everyone stay super calm. However, if there is a nuclear attack, you should probably stay inside. First thing, it's a really short video. It's super cute too. If you want to go watch it, I linked it. They say go inside as fast as you can and go in a building because a car is not good enough. Go inside a building, stay inside that building, away from windows and doors. Get to the middle of the building, go in the basement, get away. If you were exposed to the radiation of a nuclear attack, wash yourself. Take your clothes off, wash your body, get clean, and stay inside. And then basically just stay tuned, and we'll reach out to you when it's safe to leave your house or building, wherever you are held up. Again, we'll tell you when. So that was just super weird. It was a short video. There wasn't any context to the public service announcement being released. And last time I checked, we aren't in a Cold War anymore. In fact, we are a very long way away from telling kids to duck under their desks in case a bomb comes. Why are we talking about this again? That's a weird public service announcement. And then a couple days later, the mayor decided, you know what, we should do another one. Let's go ahead and put out, I'm going to make a TikTok. The mayor of New York City was like, I'll make a TikTok. And he did. He made a TikTok. And in this TikTok, he's talking about how, and it's 20 seconds, and he never leaves his apartment without his New York tap water. And that everyone should drink more tap water. What a noble cause, And I looked it up because that's what I do for you. Apparently, New York has some of the cleanest tap water in the world, actually. It's world renowned. And they, on this website, they check it 900 times a month or some astronomical amount of times. Anyway, it's a lot. But they went on, this is the cleanest tap water and you should drink more tap water. He didn't really say why you should drink more tap water. I don't know. Maybe people just really enjoy bottled water. I don't know. But he suggested you drink more tap water and that it's super clean. Maybe it's part of a green initiative, but he didn't really say anything about that. I could see it potentially being part of a green initiative, reusable bottles or whatever. They really didn't include any information we use this many water bottles or plastic throwaway bottles every month and we could save the planet or whatever. They didn't say any of that. They just said drink tap water, which I thought was a bit odd, but okay. And then most recently, so July 28th, New York City Emergency Management put out another announcement, which was the same people that put out the first announcement about the nuclear attack. And they were like, hey, you should have a go bag ready. Just just in case. So here's the actual tweet that they put out. Quote, a go bag has everything you need in case you have to leave home in a hurry. Every household member should have one, including kids. What will you pack? Non-perishable snacks, bottled water, copy of important documents. To find out more, follow our website, blah, 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 unquote. So, okay, don't get me wrong here. I think it's very, very, very important that you do have a go bag because natural disasters hit all the time, right? You should have like 72 hours worth of like food, a change of clothes, just some warm things, like just some extra things. It's similar to like in wintertime when I have a little extra bag in my car. If I, for whatever reason, break down, I have an extra jacket, I have a couple granola bars and a bottle of water in there, like a blanket. You just never know what's going to happen, and so you kind of want to be prepared. But like, it's just really odd timing. Like, it's just really weird. All in July. In all July, they're like, yeah, so go ahead and like, just in case there's a nuclear attack, make sure you're drinking your tap water and also put bottled water in your go bag. It's just very odd. If you don't have a go bag, you definitely should. And it could be, I mean, it is hurricane season, right? Hurricanes are coming, and hurricanes do sometimes hit New York City. I understand this. So it could be that. They just like really should work on their timing if that's the case. Or like explain that in one of their mini public service announcements. I don't understand they want to keep them short. But like, just say, hey, by the way, this has nothing to do with the nuclear attack that may or may not be coming, since we brought that up. This is because of hurricane season or whatever, right? But they didn't say any of that. They're just like, yeah, so like nuclear attack's probably coming. Also, like, pack a go bag. There aren't that many entrances and exits into the city. It's going to be really bogged down, and there's a lot of people that live there. I think that if you live in New York City now, I would leave. Just like if you work from home somewhere else. Just like anywhere else is good. So that's all. That's it. There's a great reset. It's going to be an ongoing thing. You're going to see more and more things coming up about it. You're going to see more like hashtags on social media about it. You're going to see all kinds of things. People are constantly like, oh, this is part of the Great Reset, because it's happening. And they're just doing it so like they're playing chess. They're trying to like play chess in a game where most people are playing checkers. We need to step up our game, guys. Let's step it up. So if you learned anything today, there's a real food shortage coming, which I covered last week, but like I just want to really reiterate, like, get some extra food. Just get some extra food. Every time you go to the grocery store, pick up like 10 extra cans. Cans are cheap. Pick up a couple extra, like, I don't know, loaves of bread and put them in the freezer. Just some things, like just prepare yourself. But also, like, you should have a go bag. And there's freeze-dried meals. They're delicious. They're super easy, high in calories. Throw them in a go bag. They stay good forever. I'm trying to help you. So I hope that this was very informative for you. I really appreciate you guys listening. I know we have so many new followers now. If you don't follow us on Instagram, please do it, because I don't know, sometimes I put out cute little videos. Not often, actually. But I do put out information, sometimes really good information. So if you don't follow us on Instagram, please do it. If you haven't rated or reviewed the podcast, guys, that would help me so much. You guys listening to me every single week, it means so much to me, so much. And I really, really want to put out really good content for you all. Ratings and reviews helps more people find me, and I'm thinking about doing a fan club. If you would be interested in a fan club, please let me know, because right now I'm like, nobody really cares. But maybe you do. Maybe all you want to do is listen to my voice in your headphones all week long, and you only get to listen to one episode right now. So I want to put out more information, or more, conspiracies for you, and like the weird ones. There's one that I want to really do, but it's more, it would be like a fan club one, because you would think I've gone full off the rails. I did the moon landing, but what if we did land on the moon, but then there was like this like glass colony up there? I don't know. I'm trying not to like come off crazy, but that sounds like a really cool fan club episode if you want to have that. I'm rambling. I do this in real life when I'm not scripted. I love you guys. I really appreciate you guys. Stay skeptical, all of you lovely people, and I will see you next week. The Rabbit Hole is an independent podcast with everything you hear done by me, Dani Mercy. We thrive on listeners like you. If you like what you're hearing, please leave us a rating or review wherever you are listening. Follow us on Instagram at rabbit.holepodcast. Special thank you to Zakar Valaha Music for our intro.